Hello. There's no good way to start a YouTube video, so this is the mid-year freakout, book freakout tag. Can I even get the name right? Mid-year book freakout. Am I freaking out? Not really. My goal this year was to read 100 books. It's an unspoken goal. I don't put a goal on Goodreads. Can't fail if there's no goal. I've got so much confidence in myself. My goal is to read 100 books this year. I've read like 47 and I'm in the middle of some big books that I'll be finishing soon. So I feel pretty confident that I'm gonna hit that. I thought this would be fun. I did just do a wrap up of every book I've read this year so far and post it. That is a really long video in which I go really in depth on everything I've read. So I thought this would be fun to kind of do more general. Another fun little introduction to me and my channel. So this tag really comes out hard with number one, best book you've read so far in 2024. What a question. What a question. And so I pondered this one for a while. And the book that I chose, it's like so surprising. This was the most unexpected book for me, but the affinity I have for this book, like, has no bounds. And of course, I don't own a physical copy of it because I think the covers are ugly. Whatever, I'm talking too much. It's The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie. This book is so good. It is funny, it is deep, it is exciting, it is suspenseful. It is everything that a good fantasy and really just a good book should be. Joe Abercrombie is a master at crafting characters and character studies, and this book, so I think it sounds really unappealing to a lot of people because it's just a 3-day battle. You're getting a lot of characters from First Law, a lot of people you haven't, seen before. But it's like looking at this battle from both sides. And I guess, it's grimdark. Moral grayness is kind of, like the quintessential grimdark thing. And this is such an amazing example of it. Like the in-depth look at the different motivations, both personal and political, that these characters have going into this war. It spotlights these characters who are like super complicated, and some of them are like completely mentally unhinged, but still does a just like beautiful job of showcasing their humanity. And it's just really cool. Like if you've read the first 3 books, you see these characters like Bethide's son Calder, or Gorst, Bermerdan Gorst, who is Jezel's main opponent in the fencing competition in First Law. All of these characters get like so fleshed out and there's so much to them. Gorst is like absolutely unhinged and probably one of my favorite characters of all time. He's an absolute madman. That's like my type of character. I think I have a type, and it's him. He is the vibe. But yeah, I love this book so much. I highly recommend. This, I would say, for me, was the best of the standalones. I think all 3 of the standalones have something to offer. I really liked 2 of them, didn't really like one of them, and I'm so excited to read Age of Madness, which is probably getting into another question. Best sequel you've read so far this year. I'm currently reading Throne of Glass, and so I thought about including one of those books, but I thought I'd be like really strict about what it means by sequel and pick an actual second book. And so I went with Shadows of Self by Brandon Sanderson. This is the only book in Mistborn Era 2 that I gave 5 stars. This really is Brandon Sanderson at his best. Brandon Sanderson writes a lot of books, and so not all of them give that like 5-star feeling. This one is so good. It focuses mainly on our main character, one of our main characters, and his relationship with his wife, and some betrayal and heartbreak and difficult choices. And it's also just like a really fun adventure because that's what all of the Wax and Wayne books are. But this, I'd say, is the one that has the most emotional depth to it, and is the most focused on the story as opposed to the world. Number 3 is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. The thing that comes to mind is, and I almost bought this yesterday at Barnes & Noble, is When the Moon Hatched. I feel like people have been raving about that book, and I am really starting to dip my toes into fantasy romance, and so I feel like that might be a good one. I have a lot of stuff on my TBR, but I would like to read that at some point. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. This one's really easy. Stormlight 5 is supposed to be coming out in December. If it doesn't come out in December, my little tiny heart will break, but I will live. But yeah, Stormlight 5, like, no questions asked. Biggest disappointment. This one's hard. I think I'm going to give 2 answers. The really obvious answer is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. The Name of the Wind is like touted to be one of the greatest fantasy books of all time. Everybody loves it, so they say, though most people talk shit about it, so I don't really understand. I think it's culturally dead at this point. I shouldn't even say that I was that disappointed, because like I really didn't think I was gonna like it based on so many things that people had said. But the thing I was so disappointed about was I was like excited to read this book that maybe the plot wasn't gonna be that good, but the prose was gonna be really beautiful. And then I thought that his writing was terrible. So that was really disappointing. The other book that comes to mind, which is not one that most people have heard of or really know about, is Bones and All by, I think it's Camilla De Angelis is the name of the author. But I finally got the courage to watch this movie. Luca Guadagnino adapted this into a movie in, I think, 2022. It's like a YA, you would call it a cannibal romance. I think it's a reduction of the story. It's really about trauma and generational trauma, but that's the package that it's wrapped in, right? An incredible movie, like one of my favorite films that I've seen this year. Luca Guadagnino, he doesn't disappoint, you know? He doesn't disappoint. But the book sucked, and I was so bummed, because usually when you have a film and you really love it and you read the book, there's like added layers of depth to that experience. And that was not the case at all with Bones and All. Biggest surprise. So I feel like there were a lot of books that surprised me, but probably the biggest surprise is like, it's just that I'm an SJM girly. I've read almost all of Throne of Glass. I'm like over halfway through Kingdom of Ash right now, and I just finished Akamoth, and I am so down bad. I love these books, and based on the stuff that I like, usually read, the type of fantasy I usually read, I really didn't think I was gonna like it. I felt like it was like I had to like give it a shot. And to be fair, that's really what I did. It was like a commitment to read Throne of Glass in the beginning. Throne of Glass is not like ACOTAR. To me, ACOTAR from like the first second is great. But Throne of Glass took really until Heir of Fire for me to fully feel like, okay, this is like getting interesting. The fantasy elements, the characters, the world building, this is getting interesting. And then it just like has become one of my favorite series. I thought I was not like other girls, and it turns out I am. So happy to be here. Very happy to be here. Number 7 is favorite new author. And I feel like that's weird to say Sarah J. Maas is my favorite new author, but that probably is the case. I don't really have anybody else that I've like read new books from this year that I'm really obsessed with. Newest fictional crush. Can you tell where this is going? Since I just said I finished Yakimov, I don't think I've ever been as down bad for a character as I'm down bad for Rhys. It took me too long to get here, too long to let myself get here, but we got here. And the other character who I've also already mentioned is Gorst. Look, you want some insight into me? I've got a long history of dating severely mentally ill men. There's something about a little bit of crazy that like, it's what I like. It's what I'm in real life and in books. It's what I'm here for. And Gorst, like, he goes up to another character and he's like, notice me. Like, I will literally kill myself if you just like he's fucking unhinged. And I don't think there's supposed to be anything romantic or like attractive about him as a character, but he absolutely did it for me. Also Lorcan from Throne of Glass. I think that's the other character for me where I'm sensing a theme here. Newest favorite character, like other than the ones that I just mentioned, who I do love, probably also Manon. Or Manon. Is it Manon? Is it Manon? I say Manon in my head, but it's probably supposed to be Manon. Ooh, you know who will say? I want to talk about people that I haven't talked about yet. Sevro from Red Rising is like so high up there as one of my favorite characters of the year. I absolutely adore Sevro and have been so nervous to continue the series because it's jumping 10 years later and I just don't know what the vibe is gonna be. But I read books 2 and 3 of Red Rising this year and I love Sevro. I know I'm not alone. Everybody loves Sevro. Sevro is an icon. Book that made you cry. A book that didn't make me cry. I cried so much while reading A Court of Mist and Fury. When Rhys like starts telling Feyre things from his perspective, I was just in hysterical tears. I was also a little wine drunk last night, so I feel like it doesn't fully count. A book that I haven't talked about that I read recently that made me just a mess was The Song of Achilles. I loved that book. That book is a strong contender for the best book of the year. I cannot impress upon you enough how much that book emotionally affected me. I kind of like already had a buy-in, which for me is a big thing when I'm reading something new. I was really obsessed with Alexander the Great as a kid, and so like Alexander the Great was really obsessed with Achilles and Patroclus, and there's a really, you know, common comparison of him and Hephaestion to Achilles and Patroclus. And so it's a story that already was like at a very warm place in my heart. I had read the Iliad like as a kid, but the way that she portrayed that love, the way that she put that on the page, it was devastating. It was heartbreaking, but also like so beautiful, and it just like filled me, you know. It's so good. To 11 is book that made you happy, so I guess that also goes on there. But you know what, a book that like was like pure joy, I read all of Heartstopper. I don't include graphic novels in like my books read for the year, but I did read all 5 of the Heartstopper volumes this year, and just like absolutely like sweet, blissful, like romance. Like I think that if you're having a bad day or you just need something like light, like Heartstopper it's like pure serotonin. The most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received? I feel like I'm one of the few people, I'm like really not into fancy special editions of things. There's one series that I have gotten one of the special editions, and I would like to collect them because I do think they're really beautiful. Technically this was a Christmas gift. I think I got it in January though, but I feel like it is more of a 2023 book, but close enough. And that is the illustrated version of Sword of Destiny. This is the second Witcher story collection, and it's my favorite in the series. And the cover, it's just so pretty. It's so beautiful. The Sword of Destiny has 2 blades. You are one of them. What is the other, White Wolf? So good. So good. And this, I feel like, is just me. I feel like everybody else is gonna be like, huh? But I did thrift this book really recently, and like, again, I'm not very often do I find books where I'm like, oh my god, it's this cover of this book, I'm so excited. Like, that almost never happens. But whenever I go to the thrift store, I look for vintage hardbacks of A Song of Ice and Fire, and I found the original like cover of A Feast for Crows. I think that the new printings of these books are really ugly. It's in perfect condition. It's so beautiful. Like, I cannot express to you how happy I was when I found this, and it was like $2, $3. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? I really want to read the Age of Madness trilogy by the end of the year, so I gotta get on that. I gotta read Sharp Ends, I gotta start Age of Madness, and I really want to reread Stormlight before the end of the year, before 5 comes out. Thanks for watching. We made it through this whole video before my couch arrived. I wasn't stopped in the middle to have to go drag a giant couch inside of my house, so that's great. I am currently filming a reading vlog, so that should be up maybe even before this, my first one. If you see this video and you've done this tag, you should comment because I would love to watch yours, or if you haven't, you should. That'd be sick. Yeah. Bye.